Greetings and salutations. Thank you for lending an ear to The Voice of the Times for Saturday, January 15, 2022, brought to you by Wilkin Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with a Wilkin online store. Just go to shop.wilkin.com.ph. For today's editorial, government must make better use of restrictions on unvaccinated people. The harsh restrictions imposed by the government on the movement of unvaccinated people in response to the massive surge in COVID-19 infections have been bitterly condemned by critics as anti-poor and anti-people. But as unpleasant and inconvenient as they may be, they are entirely justified by current medical evidence. We are concerned, however, that the restrictions as currently designed and enforced are neither humane nor make efficient use of the opportunity they provide to bring the pandemic under control. Under Alert Level 3, which has been declared in Metro Manila and several other parts of the country, persons who are not fully vaccinated are prohibited from using public transportation, entering most places of business, or otherwise leaving their homes for all but the most essential purposes. Although it can be debated whether or not many of the edicts of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases are actually science-based as claimed, the virtual lockdown of unvaccinated individuals is beyond doubt. Research from various institutions, among them Johns Hopkins University and the University of Chicago, has confirmed that so-called herd immunity through infection or exposure to the coronavirus is impossible. According to the research, the coronavirus kills the body's T cells at a rate slightly higher than the human immunodeficiency virus or HIV. Thus, people who become infected with the coronavirus are left with a much higher risk of a subsequent infection and could possibly be at higher risk of other types of infections, although the research on this latter problem is not quite clear. The only defense against this is vaccination. By triggering the body's immune response, the vaccine in a sense serves as a set of instructions for the body to create more T cells that can target the coronavirus, hopefully enough that a future infection is eliminated without causing serious illness. It is therefore imperative that everyone be vaccinated to prevent or reduce the spread of COVID-19 and reduce individuals' risk of serious illness or death in the short term, and to reduce a potentially enormous burden on the health system and quality of life in the long term. Unvaccinated people are more likely to contract a serious illness and spread the infection to others, so imposing restrictions to limit their contact with other people is a necessity. It defeats, however, the general objective of protecting their well-being if those restrictions cause them other hardships in meeting their basic needs. Likewise, making too many exceptions to allow the movement of unvaccinated people defeats the purpose of the restrictions to protect the community. One criticism raised against the restrictions is an excellent illustrative point, and one that the government unfortunately has dismissed without an acceptable response. If the unvaccinated are not allowed to use public transportation, how are they to travel to vaccination sites to receive a vaccine? The solution has been obvious for as long as vaccines have been available, but has been resisted by the government because of its deeply misguided position that the responsibility and corresponding cost of managing the pandemic, obtaining and paying for testing, bearing the costs of isolation and treatment, traveling to vaccination sites, lies with the population rather than the government. If the government wants the restrictions to have a positive outcome, then it must take on the responsibility for providing the solutions to rectify the problem that made the restrictions necessary in the first place. That means, quite simply, bringing the solution to the people rather than expecting them to go find it, conducting door-to-door vaccination and testing where needed, and providing sufficient support to those whose livelihoods are compromised by the restrictions. Doing this would put people's minds at ease and offer them a strong incentive to comply with the rules. According to statements just this week, there is no longer any issue with vaccine supply, and while the government may complain that the expense of pursuing a rational plan of action as described above is too high, that short-term cost pales in comparison to the cost of letting the pandemic and its potential long-term impacts on public health drag on for months or years. And that's the editorial for Saturday, January 15, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and listen to The Voice of the Times.